Hey there, everybody. We are going live here and getting everything set up. We're going to be doing chapter 2 for Think and Grow Rich here today. And we are just getting ready to go live here on Instagram, which is kicking up now. So we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, and we are on YouTube at www.chadonyoutube.com. We're going to dive into chapter 2 here. Last week we did chapter 1. For those of you who aren't familiar with the book we're reading, it is Think and Grow Rich, which is by Napoleon Hill. This is kind of the self-development book that started everything off. It's got a lot of really good information in it, not only from an achievement perspective, but also when it comes to communication. So this is some of the stuff that we're going to go through and talk about today. And you should be able to add some comments in there. If we have the opportunity, I'll go ahead and answer some as I'm able to. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get going. So the chapter that we're going to talk about today is about desire and the role of desire in working on that definite purpose that you have. And that's really the focus of Think and Grow Rich. It is on achieving the outcomes that you want to for your life, rejecting poverty, embracing prosperity. And one of the things that we really see right out the gate, is this discussion and this emphasis on that it has to be definite. It can't just be a wish. When we're working on stuff, unless you have a due date, unless it's written down, a lot of times what we're thinking about are really just considered wishes, good ideas, things that we want to do, but we really haven't committed to them because we haven't written them down. We haven't set a due date that we have to get this done by. And that's part of having something that is a definite desire. When I work with people in the communication area, I use the term desired outcome. Same concept. It's something that you want to have. It's the result that you want to have. I like saying desired outcome because it reminds me that I could get an undesired outcome as well and kind of keep you on your toes. One of the story examples that the author talks about right in the beginning is how this individual, Edwin Barnes, went to work for Thomas Edison, and he was completely committed to doing this, and how it did turn out that he got the business relationship he wanted with Thomas Edison, and that he was dedicated to staying with it. He was extremely persistent, and he saw that in his future. And this is something that's really important to keep in mind, is that when we are working on something, is that we have that vision, that belief that we're going to be successful at it. Because when we don't, obviously we don't put in the best effort that we can, but also when it comes to communication with other people, it can shine through. That lack of belief in ourselves, that lack of self-confidence, that I'd like to get this done, but it might not happen. All those factors can erode and chip away at how effective of a communicator that you can be. And it's really important to have that belief in yourself. And sometimes that can be hard. And we're going to talk about something to do in those kind of situations. And when you set that goal, then you start making that the priority for most everything that you do, because it's very difficult for people to focus on more than one thing. We don't really multitask. A lot of times there's talk about, you have to be able to multitask. People don't multitask. We don't have multiple brains that are picking up and dropping tasks like a computer chip it does, where it has multiprocessors that are really doing the different tasks. What appears to be simultaneously, but it's different processors typically, or processing units, CPUs, whatever. So it's having committed to that, understanding what the risk is, and moving forward. Now, there's an example here of where, it talks about the value of obsession. Obsession is something that can be healthy, can be unhealthy. We're going to talk about in a healthy context here, and that people will typically say, "Oh, you're obsessing about something," when you're just really committed to it. And a lot of times they're going to be jealous of it. They're not going to understand why you picked to do that more so than hang out with them on a Friday night or go watch a football game, whatever else it is. That other priority of yours is more important, and you are obsessing on that over doing something that they think is fun. But instead, they tend to get a little bit of jealousy about that. Now, with that being said, the tale of an explorer landing somewhere and basically forcing his soldiers to fight for victory by burning his ships. Now, you hear this meme a lot in entrepreneurial circles about where, the quasi legend is that Cortez lands in South America somewhere. Maybe it was Mexico, and tells his soldiers, "You have to win this battle on the beach because I just burned all your little boats to go back to our ships. There's no going back." Does it sound cool and all that? Yeah, sure. There's situations where you have to do something like that. Yeah, they will happen. Is that the ideal path? Let's put it this way. There's a reason why fighter jets have ejection seats. Things go wrong sometimes, and you got to get out. You want to manage the risk, and being someone that really is working towards the goal, you're more likely to take on more risk to attain that goal, especially someone that might have their own business, that you've got that goal, you want to achieve that role, you want to go work for a certain company, that you'll be willing to do stuff that a lot of other people might see as an unnecessary risk. And there's definitely the more risk you're willing to experience, the more of an advantage you're going to have over working with people. Also, that can translate through as confidence when you communicate with people, because you're coming through and saying, like, "Listen, I'm going to achieve this, no matter what I have to do or within reason." And that will definitely transmit that to other people. Are there times and places to, do the burning ships mode of not giving yourself a way out, basically? Yeah, there can be when the stakes are high enough, but that's a decision that you have to make. And I don't think it's one to be made lightly. It's like, if there's ways that you can minimize the risk, play the downside, live the fight another day, definitely do that. Unless it's something that is just an unbelievable opportunity, or that you're in a situation where you must have this work out. That's a call for you to make. Um, and as an entrepreneur, as someone who's pursuing goals that mean a lot to you, maybe it's working for a certain company, like I said, or whatever it might be, you're willing to take on that risk that a lot of other people kind of shy away from, to be quite honest. So it's something to keep in mind. And this also has, how it ties into being success conscious versus failure conscious, being money conscious, as far as understanding what the benefits, what the rewards are from taking on those risks, and how they translate out of your desire. And remember, it's a definite desire. It's knowing what you want for certain. It's not just a wish. It's not just a good idea. And it's really drummed into the reader early on in this book, because it sets the foundation for everything going forward. And the same is true when it comes to communication. If you know your material and you know your cause, you understand what your desired outcome is, you've gone the extra length to understand it better. You've invested in research, you've invested in learning, you've invested in practice of yourself, so that when you go out and you interact with people, maybe you give a presentation somewhere, you're asking for funding, you're trying to get a job, whatever else it is, all that's going to show through. Versus like, I don't know the answer to that, in different kinds of situations. That's why it matters. And it matters in so many different ways. And it's going to come through. Are you success conscious, or are you failure conscious? How committed are you to getting that money? How committed are you to getting that role, that customer, whatever else it is? You have to believe, what you're going after. It has to come through that you believe. And we're assuming you're not like, having some, you're not a psychopath or something like that. People that inspire people because they believe in what they're following. That's a lot about what communication is about, is saying, this is what I do. I'm really good at what I do. I want to do this with you. Let's go do this together and make great things happen. In a nutshell, that's what we're doing every time we communicate with people. And it has the foundation in this definite desire, in the desired outcome of knowing what it is you're going to do, knowing what you're capable of doing, knowing what you're committed to doing at the same time. Now, there's going to be 6 steps that Napoleon Hill outlines here for creating your own definite purpose. It is not that dissimilar from what I work with on desired outcomes, except I provide a little bit more of a framework and how to get to there. But one of the most important things when you figure that out is that you hang in there, that you don't quit. It goes back to that 3 feet to go to the gold that we talked about in chapter 1. It's goes back into achievement. A lot of people think it's not achievable, like the 4-minute mile. If you haven't heard of the story around the 4-minute miles, a lot of people thought it was impossible. You can never do it. And then a runner in England did it. And then, like, after he did it, there was like this floodgate, relatively speaking, of other people who began breaking the 4-minute mile. And so once it had been demonstrated, people were doing it. We see this in a lot of areas of achievement, but it's that first person getting over that hurdle that really connects, that really works with so many people in so many different ways. We see the people that have that desire, that a lot of times they operate from a position of disadvantage. Talking about Helen Keller being successful. The Wright brothers, they were not trained engineers. They figured out how to make something fly that no one else had done before. So there's a couple different ways to approach this. Now let's talk about the 6 steps in creating your definite desire. And I'll talk a little bit about how this connects into desired outcome, but this is definitely something you can do. In the edition of the book we're using, it's on page 42, and we're talking about prosperity in this book. And it's really important to keep in mind that when we talk about different communication skills and becoming a more effective communicator, we're not doing that in the context of you just becoming a better communicator for the hell of it, unless you just happen to have a passion for it, like I do. You're doing it for a reason. And for most people, it's to earn more money. That's absolutely great. It's fantastic. You shouldn't feel bad about it. So step 1 is figuring out what it is that you want to earn and writing that exact amount down. The second one is, when do you want to have it done by? The second one is, what are you willing to do to get that exchange of money? What are you going to provide that someone's going to pay you for? The third one is setting the date. And then 4th one is you write it all together. You create that plan that says what you want to do, how much, and then you begin working on it. Don't pet it off. A lot of people will prepare to do something, and that ends up in nothing happening. Even if it's kind of a very rough plan, it's not very certain, begin making progress, begin doing something, because even when you fail and screw up at it, you're going to learn lessons from that. Write out the clear, concise statement of all that information in it. And then the other thing is something that a lot of people will trip up on. They'll do the first 5 steps, no problem. But then the 6th one is to read it aloud to yourself twice a day, when you get up, before you go to bed. People feel silly doing this, but it is that reinforcement of that mindset. It's a reinforcement of the attitude, more so, is understanding what you are focusing on doing. And this is where there can be a disconnect with people that don't appreciate or respect what you're trying to do, because that will begin to become more and more front and center in your mind than some of the other things that you were doing, perhaps. So the thing about when you go through and create that definite desire, there's nothing saying you have to share it with anybody, because you don't. It can be just for you. It's not really intended to be shared by design. You kind of have that option. You can do it if you want. So you can keep it as private as you want. The drawback of that approach, though, is if you need other people to assist you, they aren't aware of it. Or maybe there's parts of that you don't want to share, how much money it is you want to make, maybe your time frame. Maybe you only want them to know you're doing some parts, not other parts, something like that. And this is where working with a desired outcome statement comes in, and that it is a similar thing, and that you are creating a 3 to 5 sentence statement of what it is you want to do, of what the result is you need. And it needs to be something that can be at least those 3 to 5 sentences easily understandable as much as possible, and something that you can easily share and that you can use as a reference. So when you're encountering decision points, you can look back on this like, okay, is this going to help me get closer to achieving that desired outcome or no? And if it's no, in most situations, you don't want to do that. Now, there could be different work situations, especially if you're an employee or something to that effect. So this isn't licensed to be like, tell the world to screw off and only do what your desired outcome says. The world's not perfect. Sometimes we all got to take a bite of the shit sandwich of life. That's just the way it goes. But in most cases, and if you find yourself repeatedly having to conform to other desired outcomes, it might be a good time to sit back and take a look at what you're doing and if you're on the right path. So there will be video series on the YouTube channel walking through how to create your desired outcome statement. That'll be going up here fairly soon. There'll be a notification going out when that's up. Another great reason that if you're not subscribed to Chad on youtube.com to do so, because you'll get that notification when it's up. And it's a 3 or 4 part series. It's more than just writing it down. And this is where people fail in achieving their goals, but also in communication is we see what's happening in front of us. You see the tech entrepreneur that's been wildly successful. You see the presenter that's on stage speaking in front of tens of thousands of people. But what we don't see and don't think about is everything that's going on behind the scenes leading up to that. And that's what a lot of this is that behind the scenes work. A big successful speaker doesn't just get hatched and walk onto the stage and doing a great job. There's a lot of preparation that goes into that. Most importantly is understanding what their desired outcome is, what their definite purpose is, and why they're doing it. If you just walk onto the stage speaking, okay, you might be okay. Maybe you're great at being on stage, but if it's not connected to your desired outcome or your definite purpose, it's a waste of time. And the problem is when you start doing stuff that's not aligned to your definite purpose, to your desired outcome, that becomes a really bad habit unto itself, which is a problem. So you don't want to start something like that. You always want to be focused on working towards that desired outcome. Now, one of the things talked about just a couple minutes earlier was about how confidence is portrayed and why it's really important to know what your desired outcome is, what your definite purpose is, because it's going to translate into how you act, even how you move, how you dress, how you interact with others, what you decide to do, and what you decide not to do. And a lot of times that is even more important. But there are times when you might be beat down. Maybe you're not quite sure of how to do something. You know what you want to do, but you might struggle at how you're trying to get there. And this ties into the ending story in this chapter where Napoleon Hill talks about him and his wife had a son who had a hearing disability, something did not form properly. And basically they were told he would never hear again. The kid is very persistent and perseveres, and basically, is able to take advantage of different hearing technology, hearing aids, and, go to the point of working for the company that makes them. But the thing that's important is knowing when to lean on someone, because there'll be times when other people have more confidence in you than what you have. It could be after a loss, could be after something that go right. There's all kinds of different scenarios in which that might be the case. And there's nothing wrong with leaning on that person that believes in you. it's going to be a fairly small circle of people. Maybe it's your parents, your spouse, your coach, someone like that, very small circle of friends. But there's nothing wrong with that. If you need kind of that pick me up, that, oh man, I'm just like out of gas, who can help you get over that hill? Lean into that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And the other factor of this too is knowing who not to lean into. There'll be a lot of experts out there that'll say one thing, and then people do exactly the opposite. It happens in the medical field. You're not going to get better. You're never going to gain the use of something or be able to hear, as in the example here with Napoleon Hill's kid. And sometimes it's going against the grain. That's something that is a factor in American culture that's kind of waning. And we really need to get back to that. It's just because some expert tells you to do or not to do something, it doesn't mean you don't stay with it. It doesn't mean that you don't execute. And a lot of times, what do you have to lose by doing it anyway? So, it's just as important to lean into people when you need that little boost, you need that little extra energy. And it's also just as important to know when to push somebody to the side and work through and pass the challenges that person might be putting in front of you. One of the other interesting quotes here is, I'm going to find it here in the book, is this quote: "Success requires no apologies and failure permits no alibis." I think we can interchange alibis with excuses here. This reminds me of a real problem that we're seeing with people in executive and leadership roles right now. Recently, acting president of Columbia University issued a letter apologizing for anti-Semitic remarks she made about a Jewish member of the university's board of trustees. Also saying that the person was a pain, they need to be replaced with another person, an Arab or someone from the Middle East, and basically really did not just demonstrate good leadership, much less communication abilities. And this happened 1 to 2 years ago. Well, then recently she issued this letter, and then I guess a bigger communication to the university population. Interestingly enough, this happened when that university is trying to secure or get back its federal funding, which kind of makes you question the veracity of the apology in this situation. The timing makes it, easy to question in my mind. And not only is it bad enough of what was said or typed, this was mainly took place in text messages, but that she, in her apology, said that she was stressed and frustrated with what she was dealing with. And this is where I think this quote comes into play. Success requires no apologies, failure permits no alibis or excuses. When you're in a leadership role, such as president or acting president of a university, and your alibi/excuse is I was stressed and frustrated is what led to me making these comments. Are you really qualified to do this job? If you don't have that mental check and balance of should you be saying this stuff? And when people apologize for stuff too, I found that there's a difference between apologizing how you said something versus apologizing for the substance of what you said. So let me give you an example here. If a person apologizes, like two people having an argument, discussion, and one person is in favor of all red sports cars, the other person is in favor of all blue sports cars, and the blue sports car person says to the red sports car person, well, you know what, you think this, and you're just like an idiot because you only like red cars. Okay. Nothing was really changed in the context of positions or substance in that discussion. It was how that happened. So that person might apologize, a blue sports car person might say, you know what, I got really passionate. I know we disagree on this. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have called you an idiot. That, I think, is much more believable than someone who apologizes for the substance of what they said, such as attacking someone for their faith, their culture, their country of origin, perhaps, something like that. I think that's a much more difficult mountain to climb in believing that you're actually, contrite about it. Because when you're in a position where you're thinking about doing an apology, you have a couple options. You can stand your ground, plant your flag on that hill and fight on it. You can apologize if you mean it. You can apologize if you don't mean it. And then you can just ignore it. And, the different options that people elect to do, really the decision factor here comes into play of when they apologize and then it's, oh, but I'm under stress and frustration. That doesn't make it right. And actually it says you're really not fit to do the job. Similar that type thing happened a year ago when the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, disappeared for a week he had to go into the hospital after a cancer surgery procedure and didn't tell anybody. That's kind of a big no-no. I don't think he would be as tolerant if it was another officer or enlisted person in the military did the same thing. And then, he apologized for it, but then said, well, there was no system to do the notifications. It's like they don't have phones, like you or your chief of staff could have called up the White House, say, hey, this is going on. And then, it was kind of like, I'll do better next time is one of the things that he said. It's like, you're Secretary of Defense. What are you going to do better at? You're at the top of your game. So it's something to keep in mind as you become a leader, if you're in a leadership role, and that if you screw up, own it. And also, if you're in an organization that has a leader behaving in one of these two ways, how does that reflect on not only the organization, but the board or the group that's leading that group? So these are a couple lessons that come out of desire, of understanding success, and not having to apologize for being successful, or also screwing up but not offering excuses, of being definite about what you want to pursue, about what you want to do, and writing it down. You got to write it down. You follow the steps here in the book as far as the 6 steps to writing down your definite purpose. You've got to talk about it, though. Pet it in places that you're going to see it, on your computer, or on your bathroom mirror, wherever it might be. Say it aloud to yourself twice a day. And this is going to set the foundation for all the other lessons we're going to cover in the remaining chapters and lessons of the book. And also, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You'll get the notification of when the video tutorials about creating your desired outcome statement will be available on the channel. Until next week, we'll tackle into chapter 3 of Think and Grow Rich. We'll see you then.